Comrades, let's rise. Let the workers rise. The leaders are coming.
Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. Solidarity forever. For the union.
Not members, please hurry up.
There is victory for all, for whatever, backward never, in the struggle for our members, there is victory. Great Nigerian workers. Great. Ever vibrant Nigerian workers. Great. Hard-working Nigerian workers. Great. Great. On behalf of the Trade Union Congress and the Nigerian Labour Congress, we have the singular honor to present the 2021 May Day Address. On behalf of organized labor in Nigeria, we bring to Nigerian workers, pensioners, labor veterans, allies in civil society, women, youth, and all people of goodwill, very hearty felicitations on the commemoration of the 2021 Workers' Day. We are here today to celebrate the resilience, the resurgence, and the resourcefulness of Nigerian workers, especially at this moment of great distress and dislocation in the world of work as occasioned by COVID-19. This pandemic has more than anything we have seen in a lifetime shaken the core progress made by workers for decent wages, for dignified working conditions, sustainable livelihoods, and an increased stake in the spread of the surplus value created by workers. This International Workers' Day provides an ample moment to take into the contribution of frontline workers who keep awake at our public gates and keep at bay the threats of COVID-19. Many of those brave women and men paid the supreme price. Some contracted the coronavirus and suffered life-lasting complications. It is to the memory of those heroes and heroines that we dedicate this year's May Day. I also wish our Muslim workers' brothers Ramadan Kareem. The choice of the theme of this year, that is COVID-19, social and economic crisis, challenges for decent work, social protection, and people's welfare, is an inquest into how workers have fared under the heavy cloud of the novel coronavirus. This year's theme resonates with our apprehensions on how the industrial system, especially employers and governments, recognize and appreciate the contribution of Nigerian workers at this very unusual time. In sync with our convictions, we must say that our country has not made the desired progress in protecting workers and the Nigerians from the impact of COVID-19, which has brought with it the daunting challenges for decent work, social inclusion, protection, and the distress on people's welfare. Despite the best effort of government, organized labor, and private sector employers, millions of Nigerian workers have lost their jobs, their means of livelihood, and have slipped into destitution, lack, and misery. The weaknesses of our social protection system has aggravated the pain and frustration of our compatriots. Comrades, ladies and gentlemen, the impact of COVID-19 in Nigeria. Information on the official website of the World Health Organization shows that as of 20th of April 2021, 223 countries and territories of the world have recorded 141,754,944 million cases of COVID-19 infection, with a mortality toll of 3,025,835, a huge loss of precious life indeed. In Nigeria, the current casualty burden of the new coronavirus disease as of 23rd of April 2021 stands at 164,633 confirmed cases, 7,923 active cases, 154,643 number of patients who had recovered and have been discharged, and we have lost 2,061 very precious lives. The story of the COVID-19 is largely about the workplace. In brief, it could be recalled that an Italian worker came to Nigeria. He was taken to the hotel and other places of work by a driver who is a worker. He was attended to by a worker at the hotel where he lodged. At the workplaces where he was installing machines, he interacted with workers. When his infection was detected, workers took him to isolation center. At the isolation center, Nigerian health workers were exposed to the COVID-19 while treating him, and nurses, the index case, came back full with this COVID-19. So given the foregoing work epidemiology of COVID-19 in Nigeria, it is clear that the spread of COVID-19 in Nigeria is also linked with the workplace, and that is why we are demanding that there should be a comprehensive social protection coverage for our frontline health workers. Socio-economic impact of COVID-19 pandemic. According to the ILO, the World of Work released in January 2021, the share of workers living in countries with COVID-19 related restrictions have remained high, with 93% of the world workers residing in countries with some form of workplace closure measures in place in early as January 2021. In 2020, more than 8.5% of global working hours were lost relatively to the fourth quarter of 2019, equally and equivalent to 255 million full-time jobs. Working hours lost in 2020 were about 4 times greater than that of the global financial crisis in 2009. Comrades, a recent research conducted by a cluster of Nigerian scholars estimated that during the COVID-19 inspired lockdown in many states of Nigeria and the Federal Capital Territory, about 27 million Nigerians fell headlong into poverty, ballooning the community of the working poor in Nigeria. This figure translates to a 14% increase in the poverty headcount rate in Nigeria as a result of the COVID-19 challenge. Comrades, Nigeria certainly have suffered and workers have been at the receiving end. The foregoing empirical and independent market research shows that the relevance of the June 15, 2020 pact entered between Nigerian Workers' Representative Organization and the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association, NECA, that the right of workers at work, including the right against unfair and illegal termination, be preserved, is therefore something that should be emulated in every workplace. Social crisis, the education and health sector. COVID-19 outbreak in Nigeria revealed that and amplified the belligerence of hypocritical in the Nigerian social sector, particularly the decadence in the education and health sectors. The two sectors are very critical and need each other to function effectively. Sadly, the sectors are bedeviled with strikes and our leaders are not actually concerned because they and their family members easily get premium health and education services abroad. There have been too many strike actions by health and education workers due to government's failure to address health workers' welfare and infrastructural deficit in the health sector. Collective agreements and court judgments in favor of workers in those sectors and unions have not been observed, and they have been observed in breach by government. We call on government to respect all outstanding court judgments and collective agreements involving our unions. Government should pay all withheld salary of workers in federal health institutions, such as the JOST University Teaching Hospital, JUT, Federal Medical Center, Uwere, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, LUT. Lagos government should also implement the Consolidated Health Salary Structure, CONHES, and overhaul the health infrastructures nationwide. We shouldn't deny workers their right under the cloud of no work, no pay. In that same law, there is also a provision that no pay, no work. And therefore, this law must be interpreted in a way and manner that brings about a balance. We implore government to continue to advance issues of social dialogue, but importantly, is to respect social dialogue and tripartism. As we noted earlier, over 13 million out-of-school children, and also an outdated curriculum, the kidnapping of our school children, via this current insecurity surge, underfunding of these two important sectors, health and education, we cannot deny the fact that we have a major issue therefore at hand. No nation develops better than its education sector. As a matter of fact, there is the urgency, and government must implement the UNESCO benchmark of budgeting 26% for our annual budget to cater for education. Social protection in Nigeria. The COVID-19 pandemic has further exposed the inherent deficiencies in Nigerian social protection system. A sound social protection system provides a cushioning mechanism in the midst of life cycle of vulnerability through nationally defined social protection floors that guarantees citizen access to essential health care, basic income security for vulnerable citizens, such as the unemployed, the aged, the physically challenged, women, and those displaced persons by natural disasters. The pandemic has further exposed the inadequacies of current flawed economic model of globalization, marked by wealth accumulation and that of social justice. A recent ILO report posited that 71% of people globally have little or no access to social protection. Before COVID-19, comrades, there was massive inequality in income, especially income inequality, racial injustice, and gender discrimination. We were also confronted with tough choices between the best and worst impacts of technology, all of which point to the need for a new social contract. Universal social protection must be the cornerstone of the new social contract. Globally, workers are demanding for universal social protection for workers to address and prevent future shock, especially for workers in the informal sector. As we speak, over 2 billion workers are earning their livelihood in the informal economy globally. This represents over 60% of the workers globally and 90% of total employment in low-income countries like Nigeria. Pursuant to the demand for universal social protection, we insist that the foundation must be universal right to freedom of association and collective bargaining. Other enablers include provision for safe workplaces, equality and inclusion, especially through equal economic participation of women, all racial groups, migrant workers, and young workers, and a guarantee that vulnerable segments of the workforce are protected from discrimination, harassment, and violence in the workplace within the context of ILO Convention 190. We demand those as basic minimal fundamental working rights for persons in the formal and informal sector of our economy. In more practical terms, comrades, we also call for conditional wage subsidies. This extension of unemployment benefit is also very important. Universal access to health care, paid sick leaves to all workers, including the self-employed, platform-employed workers, migrant workers, informal sector workers. We also call for income security for the aged and the listing of COVID-19 as a notifiable and compensable occupational hazard. We also call for the ratification of ILO Convention 102 on social security and the implementation of Recommendation 202 of the ILO on social protection flow as guiding framework for comprehensive social protection cover for all workers in Nigeria. Furthermore, in order to create the enabling broader environment for sustenance of universal social protection, we call for a rejig of the world economic system. There is no doubt that the current economic model is flawed. It has entrenched inequality and insecurity for the working people and their families, both in Nigeria and other parts of the world. In fact, it's more pronounced in Nigeria because you have a category of less than 10% that are extremely rich, and you have the majority of Nigerians, 90%, including workers, that are classified as the working poor. We therefore demand that there must be just transition and technology, and we should also centrally in our economic planning and policy formulation to accommodate those concerned. All of this will be critical in our quest to realize the goal of SDG 8 on decent work by 2030, the national minimum wage. Comrades, as all of us could recall, there have been attempts by a section of the ruling class to try to kill the national minimum wage by removing it from the exclusive legislative list to the concurrent list. This is most condemnable, as we have already canvassed during our national protest and submission of a petition to the National Assembly and the 36 state houses of assembly on March 10, 2021, and subsequently in an advocacy visit and advertorials in major newspapers in Nigeria. The national minimum wage is a global standard established by the International Labour Organization as a minimum wage fixing convention number 26 of 1928 and reinforced by minimum wage fixing convention of 1931 or convention 313 of 1970. It was also captured in Article 3, subsection D of the ILO Philadelphia Declaration, which demands that every country pursue policy in regard to wage, earnings, hours, and conditions of work calculated to ensure a just share of fruit of progress to all, and a minimum living wage to all employed and in need of such protection. And therefore, we are reinforcing our earlier position to state that Nigerian workers will not allow a situation where the progress we have made for the past 40 years to be taken by this cream of politicians. We are going to insist and we are going to resist. And let us also continue to sound a note of warning that any day that this law is considered by any of the chambers and also by any of our political elites, Nigerian workers are going to withdraw their services because we are not slaves in our own country. Comrades, our pensioners are very senior citizens. It is a known fact that no sane society will treat the welfare of its pensioners with disdain. It is a global best practice that pensioners should enjoy certain protection, such as free transportation, healthcare, and income support, whereas in Nigeria, our pensioners are treated with disrespect after meritorious service to their fatherland. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, many states have refused to pay pensioners promptly. In fact, some states pay as low as 5,000 naira as monthly pension. Comrades, this is really not acceptable, and therefore, in line with the provision of Section 173, Section 3 of the Nigerian Constitution, we demand that the pension should be reviewed and that should be done in line with the minimum wage. Comrades, following the reform of the 2014 Pension Act, which is the current act of the contributory pension scheme, we are aware of the liability, especially of the accrued right of federal workers and many workers in the state that is yet to be funded. As we speak, those liabilities are gravitating through trillions of naira. We don't want to fall back to the challenges of the past, where the defined benefit scheme was not working, and therefore the contributory pension scheme was brought as a matter of last resort. We are not going to allow a situation where the contribution of workers will also be charted away by our political elites. The contribution is in workers' retirement savings account, and therefore no politician should think that the contributory pension money is a free money. While we commend the President, Muhammadu Buhari, for approving 2 days ago a national minimum pension for Nigerian pensioners. We hope that this will be implemented so that the issue of the minimum pension will thus be addressed. Social dialogue. We also applaud the federal government for recently reconstitution of the National Labour Advisory Council and the current move to institutionalize the National Labour Advisory Council as a statutory framework for social dialogue. Social dialogue is the crown jewel in the progression of labor from the trenches of master-servant relationship. In line with the provision of ILO Convention 144, we expect the meeting of NLAC to be more periodic and predictable, as it will help address a mirage of socio-economic issues and boost post-COVID-19 recovery and resilience. Challenges for decent work. Decent work, according to ILO, involves opportunities for work that is productive, that delivers a fair income, security in the workplace, and social protection for families, better prospects for personal development, social integration, and civil liberties. The 4 pillars of decent work agenda are employment creation, right at work, social protection, and social dialogue. Those were included in the Millennium Development Goal in 2008, which later formed part of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. We therefore call on government and employers at all levels to give the maximum support for the implementation of the decent work agenda in Nigeria. Casualization is really a cankerworm eating into the deep and fabric of the labor and industrial relation in Nigeria, and therefore is an avenue to treat workers as slaves. In Nigeria, casualization has coursed through our land to the extent that it has been transformed into a driving sector. The casualties and casualization of workers who are forced to work harder than the regular employees but go home with far little income is something that is unacceptable. Our laws have said casualization is evil, and therefore we must continue to insist that no Nigerian worker should work under the condition of casualization. We use this occasion to call on government and private sector employers of labor to consolidate the milestone already gained in the current labor law review in order to make casualization of labor a thing of the past in Nigeria. We cannot afford to liberate Nigerians from the stronghold of British colonialists only for Nigerian colonialists to recolonize Nigerian workers. Quality wages have also been an issue in the face of the rising cost of living, but more importantly and especially the payment of the national minimum wage. The 30,000 certainly is not enough because the economic challenges posed by COVID-19 have actually eroded the benefit of the 30,000 minimum wage. A few states are yet to begin the implementation of the new national minimum wage. We have already asked those affected state councils to proceed on a statewide industrial action. Some states are yet to conclude negotiation, and we direct through this medium and through this Mayday to say that those actions must be taken to the letter. Violation of human rights, workers' rights, and trade union rights. In the past 1 year, there has been countless serious violations of human, workers, workplace, and trade union rights all over the country. Those who marched yesterday for the expansion of democratic rights must accept that expansion of democratic rights is an everyday experience with the right to peaceful protest as the guardian angel. Our national constitution jealously guides those rights. For Nigerian workers, it has been a catalogue of workplace and trade union violations. First is the criminal refusal by some state governors to pay the national minimum wage and consequential adjustment in salaries. Those governors are violating workers' rights to decent wages and sane living. Nothing can be mannered. We have already directed all our states, as I said, to declare industrial action if any governor remains adamant about paying the national minimum wage. Some employers of labor still deny workers the fundamental right of freedom of association and collective bargaining. Some state governors still impose trade union or trade union leaders on workers. Some employers even punish and sack workers for belonging to trade unions. This certainly will be resisted, as we have done in the past. In some cases, Governors procure strange powers to prescribe trade unions, forgetting that labor laws are domiciled in the exclusive list of the Constitution of Nigeria as prescribed by many conventions of the ILO. Of concern to us is also poor working environment and poor occupational safety and health practices in our workplace. In the light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we'll call for a new policy on occupational health and safety standards in the workplace to protect workers from falling into those avoidable occupational health and health hazards. The mass sack of workers and casualization of workers in Kaduna. We consider the recent sack of workers and casualization of more than 60% of the workforce in Kaduna State as the most brutal attack on workers and trade union rights in our nation's history. Comrades, you will recall that between 2016 and this year, the Kaduna State Governor, Mr. Nasiru El-Rufai, sacked 21,770 primary school teachers under the pretext of competency tests, 7,310 local government employees, and 3,000 personnel in the state service, and 1,240 workers at the Kaduna State Primary Care Board. Mr. El-Rufai sacked workers with one hand. He increased the school fees in Kaduna State University by almost 500%. This clearly shows a well-planned agenda to make the children of the working class destitute. Is this how El-Rufai understands development? The serial pattern of anti-workers and trade union war of attrition by Nasiru El-Rufai is not lost on the Nigerian Republic. This is indeed the industrial sadism of Mr. El-Rufai has become legendary. It is even worse now. The current anti-workers disposition of Kaduna State Governor is at the instance of the Bretton Woods institution as part of the conditionalities we are told for assessing loan for neoliberal agencies. The action of the Kaduna State Governor are in breach of the provision of Section 20, subsection 1A to C, 2 and 3 of Nigeria's Labour Act, which demanded consultation with workers' representative organizations, that redundancy benefit be agreed upon with workers' representative organization before redundancy letter and before redundancy is declared. We also condemn in strongest terms the violation of employment contract of the disengaged workers, which provided that a worker should work for 60 years or 35 years, whichever one comes first, before he is retired. We consider the promise in the redundancy letter issued by the governor to say that their benefit will be paid in this course as mockery of the entire law that all of us have sworn, especially political office holders, to respect. Mr. El-Rufai has refused to pay workers that had earlier sacked through this same process. And therefore, I think Nigerian workers using this May Day must extend shame to him. Shame. We have already declared that there will be a 5 days withdrawal of services, all services in public and private services in Kaduna, and that where there is no reversal of this decision, it will follow up by a national withdrawal of services, because we believe he is not alone in this fight against workers. We are aware some governors are part of it, and also some neoliberal forces. So, comrades, we should be prepared for a battle to address this fundamental violation of workers' rights by this governor. Poor governance and employment and insecurity. Comrades, you could recall that just 2 days ago, NLC organized the second National Peace Summit, which took place at the International Conference Center, Abuja, as part of this year's May Day commemoration. It was clearly to establish that human insecurity, as marked by mass unemployment, is the main driver for physical insecurity besieging our country. According to the data by National Bureau of Statistics, unemployment figures in Nigeria has reached an all-time high of 33.3% in the last quarter of 2020, from 27.1% in the second quarter of 2020. Part of the challenge of unemployment and insecurity is the crisis of poor governance. Weak budgets that lead to poor appropriation and poorer budgetary oversight is the bane of our development. It is unfortunate and a terrible injustice to the memory of Nigerian founding fathers that virtually every part of Nigeria have been engulfed by one form of security challenge or the other. In the north, we are aware the issue of Boko Haram in the northeast is still very prevalent. In the northwest, there is the challenge of rural banditry and kidnapping for ransom. In the north central, there is the challenge of farmer and pastoralist clashes. In the south-south, armed militia still operate in the mangroves, engage in all manner of economic sabotage. In the southwest and southeast, local militia are filling the vacuum created by the absence of state and are heating up the polity with ethno-religious rhetorics. In the midst of this confusion, Nigerians are asking, where is the state? Many Nigerians understand the grave danger of surrendering our sovereignty to a mob of violence and nondescript non-state actors. Already, the numbers are piling up as humanitarian carnage left in the wakes of medium to high intensive conflict continues to rise. Workers are a major target. So many teachers, health workers, agri and food chain workers have either been kidnapped or killed. So many working families have had their lives of their breadwinners brutally cut off, leaving behind open wounds that could be the source for another cycle of counter-violence. Just as we did at the Peace Summit, we asked Nigerian security apparatus to continue to do more. Yes, we recognize the sacrifice and commitment of our armed forces in the multifaceted fight against insecurity in Nigeria, but the job of our security operatives is not yet done until we reclaim a country where people can travel from Zamfara to Katsina without looking over their shoulders for fear of kidnappers. A country where Nigerians travel by train from Abuja to Kaduna as a matter of choice, not as a matter of consequence of the imposition of the will of the kidnappers. We must reclaim a country where pastoralists and farmers live in peace with one another under the umbrella of justice. We must reclaim a Nigeria where militancy in the southern Nigeria becomes history as a result of overflow of the tributaries of socio-economic justice. To reclaim our country, we must be serious with security votes. Security votes should be rooted through the normal budgetary process for a proper oversight, accountability. The usual refrain that security is secret business is actually a worn-out argument. Security is a collective task. We reiterate our call for improved social protection and investment in social services to deal with human insecurity, which is the bane of physical insecurity in Nigeria.